In a world drowning in noise, there are places where sound has been exiled for centuries. Hidden in the folds of mountains, behind walls of stone and time, ancient temples breathe in quietude. Their halls have heard no applause, no argument, no cry of war, only the faint hum of existence itself. Silence here is not emptiness. It is a presence, a living, breathing force. It has shaped minds, altered destinies, and carried whispers from the unseen to those willing to listen. Tonight, we journey into the secret history of silence, where science meets mysticism, and where the stillness of the past may just hold the medicine for our restless age. When we think of silence, we often imagine it as an empty space, a void between moments of sound. But neuroscience tells a different story. Silence is not an absence, it's a presence. And inside the human brain, that presence can be transformative. In 2013, a research team led by Dr. Imke Kurst at the Max Planck Institute in Germany stumbled upon something remarkable. They were studying how different types of sound affected the brain when they included a silence condition as a simple control. What they didn't expect was that 2 hours of pure silence each day triggered the growth of new neurons in the hippocampus, the part of the brain responsible for memory, learning, and emotional stability. It was as if silence itself was fertilizing the mind. The hippocampus is deeply tied to our ability to navigate the world, to remember the past, imagine the future, and process emotional experiences. When silence nourishes this region, it's not just improving memory, it's improving the very architecture of who we are. Other studies have reinforced this. In research at the University of Oregon, scientists found that quiet environments improve the brain's ability to detect subtle changes in the sensory world, sharpening awareness. Meanwhile, experiments at Duke University showed that even brief moments of silence between pieces of music allowed the brain to recalibrate, as if those pauses were tiny windows for mental reset. But silence doesn't just grow neurons, it calms our chemical storms. When we're surrounded by constant noise, traffic, phones, chatter, the hum of electronics, our body produces cortisol, the stress hormone. Elevated cortisol keeps us in a constant state of low-level fight or flight. Over time, it erodes memory, weakens the immune system, and even accelerates aging. In studies from the University of Pavia in Italy, regular exposure to silence was linked to measurable drops in cortisol levels, along with increases in serotonin and dopamine, the brain's feel-good neurotransmitters. It's as though silence tilts our entire chemistry toward balance and renewal. And then there is creativity. Some of history's greatest breakthroughs have emerged from moments of deep quiet. Einstein imagining riding alongside a beam of light, Beethoven walking through the silent woods as his deafness grew, or Nikola Tesla sitting alone in total stillness until solutions appeared and his mind fully formed. Modern research supports their intuition. In silence, the brain's default mode network becomes more active. This network is responsible for daydreaming, imagination, and connecting seemingly unrelated ideas. It is here, in the still spaces, that creativity is born. So silence, far from being passive, is a catalyst. It repairs the brain. It softens the grip of stress. It expands the boundaries of thought. And like the most ancient temples, it holds a power we are only beginning to understand. Silence is not the absence of life. It is the space where life begins to speak more clearly. When the noise fades, something ancient and deeply human comes back into focus. The mind's ability to heal itself. For most of human history, silence was woven into the fabric of daily life. The shepherd walking alone across the fields, the sailor staring out over a moonlit sea, the monk kneeling in a dimly lit chapel. In those moments, the heart and mind were given room to breathe. Modern psychology is rediscovering what ancient cultures already knew. Silence is not a void. It is an active state that restores emotional balance. In 2014, A comprehensive review published in JAMA Internal Medicine analyzed dozens of clinical trials involving thousands of participants. The finding was striking. Structured mindfulness programs, most of which take place in deliberate silence, consistently reduced anxiety, depression, and stress. These were not mystical claims, but measurable changes backed by data. Then, in 2022, researchers at JAMA Psychiatry made headlines. They compared 8 weeks of mindfulness-based stress reduction, a program that includes extended periods of silence, to escitalopram, one of the most commonly prescribed anti-anxiety medications. The result? Both approaches reduced symptoms equally. For some people, silence was as potent as a pill. But how can something as simple as quiet have such profound effects? Neuroscience offers an answer. Inside the brain, silence shifts activity in the amygdala, the almond-shaped structure that triggers fear and anxiety. In noisy, chaotic environments, the amygdala stays on high alert. In silence, it calms. At the same time, connections to the prefrontal cortex, the area that interprets and regulates emotions, grow stronger. This means we become less reactive, more thoughtful, and more in control of our responses. On a psychological level, silence breaks the cycle of rumination, that endless mental replay of fears, regrets, and self-criticism. Without constant external noise, we can actually hear our inner noise and begin to work with it. Instead of drowning it out, we observe it, name it, and gently let it pass. This is one of the core skills taught in mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, which has been shown to cut the risk of depressive relapse almost in half. Chemically, the effects are just as real. Studies show that regular exposure to silence lowers cortisol, the hormone that fuels stress, and increases serotonin and dopamine, the neurotransmitters that stabilize mood and encourage feelings of well-being. Over time, these small biochemical shifts accumulate, creating a foundation of emotional resilience. And there's something else, something harder to measure, but just as important. Silence deepens self-awareness. It creates space to see ourselves not just as bundles of thoughts and emotions, but as conscious beings able to choose how we relate to the world. In silence, compassion grows naturally. We begin to soften toward our own imperfections, and in doing so, we soften toward others. Practical applications can be surprisingly simple. 1 minute of stillness before opening your phone in the morning. A few deep breaths in a quiet corner before a difficult conversation. A daily ritual of sitting in silence, even for 10 minutes. Over weeks and months, these moments of quiet start to change the texture of everyday life. The truth is, silence doesn't erase our problems. It changes the way we hold them. It gives us the clarity to see what matters, the strength to let go of what doesn't, and the calm to face whatever remains. We've spoken of silence. Now let's feel it. Wherever you are, I invite you to pause. If you can, place both feet on the ground. Let your hands rest softly in your lap. Close your eyes, or let your gaze fall gently to a single point. Take a slow, deep breath in. Hold it for a moment, and then exhale, letting your shoulders soften. Again, inhale slowly, and exhale. Let the air move in and out without force, as if your breath is breathing you. Now, turn your attention outward. Listen, notice the sounds around you, not to label them, but simply to hear. The hum of a distant appliance, the murmur of wind or traffic, perhaps even the rhythm of your own heartbeat. Allow each sound to arise and fade like waves on a shore. And now, listen for what lies beneath the sounds. That subtle space, that stillness that holds everything. You're not trying to make the world quieter. You're simply noticing the quiet that is already here. If thoughts appear, let them pass through you like birds crossing the sky. No need to chase them. No need to push them away. Just rest here, breathing, listening, being. Pause for 15 to 20 seconds of pure silence. When you're ready, take one last deep breath. Gently open your eyes and notice how the world feels, perhaps a little slower, perhaps a little wider. This is the taste of silence. It costs nothing, and you can return to it at any time. Throughout history, humanity has built places not for the noise of celebration, but for the sanctity of stillness. The Trappist and Carthusian monasteries of Europe stand as citadels of quietude, where silence is not simply a practice, but a lifelong vow, a sacred architecture of the soul. Here, language is stripped down to necessity, and every spoken word must first pass through the gates of intention. A monk may go days, weeks, even years without uttering more than a handful of sentences, allowing the unspoken to carry more weight than any speech could bear. In the East, Buddhist monasteries rest high among clouds and pine forests, far from the tremors of human ambition. In these halls, silence is treated as a teacher, one that asks no questions, yet answers them all. To sit in such a place is to feel the mind slow until thoughts become like ripples fading on a still pond. The absence of chatter reveals something most fear to confront: the raw sound of one's own being. The architecture of these sanctuaries is no accident. Thick stone walls in European abbeys absorb every stray echo, creating an intimacy with your own heartbeat. Open courtyards in Tibetan or Japanese temples invite the wind and the rustle of leaves to speak in place of man. Corridors are long and narrow, guiding the body into slower rhythms. Thresholds are low, requiring a bow to enter, humbling the spirit before it steps inside. Light filters through in soft fragments, casting shadows that seem to move with the breath of eternity. Such places were not built to remove you from the world, but to return you to its essence. In them, the silence does not simply surround you. It permeates you, seeps into the architecture of your thoughts, and rebuilds the foundation of who you are. You begin to realize that silence is not the absence of life, but its deepest articulation. Across human history, silence has never been mere absence. It has been a crucible of insight, a threshold through which the mind enters clarity. Ancient Egyptian priests retreated into stone chambers, carved to absorb every echo before speaking sacred words. Days of quiet were devoted to tuning the spirit, for they believed the divine could only speak when the mind was emptied. In this stillness, the priests became vessels, and the silence itself a teacher, guiding them toward decisions that shaped empires and rituals that endured centuries. In Greece, the Oracle of Delphi exemplified the power of retreat. Seekers and prophets underwent purification rites and long periods of solitude, listening intently to the faint whispers of inspiration. Silence was not an absence, but an active space where thought was distilled, perception heightened, and intuition awakened. Only when the mind shed its ordinary distractions could prophecy arise, subtle and unmistakable, carried not by words, but by the resonance of a disciplined consciousness aligned with unseen currents. Warriors, too, relied on retreat to sharpen the mind. Samurai in feudal Japan withdrew to gardens and quiet temples, meditating for hours or days before battle. In these moments, fear and desire dissolved like mist, leaving only the precision of presence. Every movement, every decision flowed naturally from this deep calm. Similarly, Native American leaders embarked on vision quests, isolated in the wilderness for days, listening to wind, water, and animal sounds, seeking guidance that could not be found in speech or thought alone. Philosophers and mystics recognized the same truth. Pythagoras required students to observe years of silence, teaching that disciplined thought precedes true speech. Lao Tzu retreated into the mountains to witness the flow of nature, understanding that clarity and wisdom emerge from observation and stillness, not noise. Across traditions, isolation was not escape, but intentional alignment, a conscious step into the invisible currents of life to prepare for insight, action, and transformation. The architecture of retreat, temples, monasteries, and sacred chambers amplified this practice. Thick walls, high ceilings, shadowed alcoves, and open courtyards were designed to absorb sound, slow the body's rhythm, and heighten attention to inner life. Every structural choice guided inhabitants toward deeper listening, to their own breath, to the subtle movement of thought, and to the unspoken language of the divine. In such spaces, silence was woven into the very fabric of experience, shaping both body and mind. Retreat in history was never mere idleness. It was preparation for decisive action. Leaders, warriors, and spiritual seekers understood that clarity emerges not in noise or haste, but in concentrated stillness. By withdrawing temporarily, they could see patterns invisible to the distracted eye, anticipate consequences, and act with measured wisdom. History repeatedly shows that breakthroughs, whether in strategy, philosophy, or spiritual vision, emerge from those who first mastered the art of stepping back and listening. Across cultures, epochs, and disciplines, retreat and silence have been sacred allies. From Egyptian temples to Greek oracles, from samurai gardens to monastic cloisters, the deliberate act of withdrawing from noise created a space for insight, alignment, and inner authority. Silence becomes a mirror, reflecting the mind's true shape, a crucible where fear dissolves, intuition sharpens, and clarity emerges. To retreat is not to flee life. It is to prepare for it, armed with the deep, unshakable wisdom that only stillness can reveal. Silent meditation is not merely the absence of sound. It is the presence of awareness without distraction. Unlike practices that rely on mantras or guided instructions, it strips away all external anchors, leaving the practitioner face to face with the raw, unfiltered flow of the mind. In this stillness, thoughts are not suppressed, but observed as they arise and dissolve, revealing the impermanent nature of mental patterns and emotions. Mantra-based meditation and sound meditations can serve as a bridge for beginners, offering rhythmic repetition to guide focus. Silence, however, demands a deeper self-sufficiency. Without the auditory structure of chants or tones, one must rely solely on the breath, bodily sensations, and the spacious field of awareness itself. This makes silent meditation both more challenging and profoundly transformative. Neuroscientific studies reveal that prolonged silent meditation can lead to significant changes in brain connectivity. Functional MRI scans show increased activity in the prefrontal cortex, linked to decision-making and self-awareness, as well as reduced activity in the default mode network, the part of the brain associated with rumination and self-referential thoughts. Silence rewires the brain toward presence. Researchers at the University of Massachusetts found that even short daily sessions of silent mindfulness could strengthen neural pathways related to emotional regulation. Participants reported greater clarity of thought, reduced stress responses, and an enhanced capacity for empathy. This suggests silence doesn't just calm the mind, it reshapes it at a structural level. Spiritual traditions have long hinted at what science is now confirming. Buddhist monks, Christian mystics, and Sufi dervishes have used silence as a gateway to higher states of consciousness. In deep stillness, the boundaries between self and environment blur, giving rise to a sense of unity and interconnectedness, an experience often described as both humbling and expansive. Silent retreats, such as Vipassana, immerse practitioners in days or weeks of speechless contemplation. Without verbal exchanges, the mind initially rebels, seeking stimulation. But as the days pass, an inner softening occurs. The noise of habitual thinking fades, replaced by a profound intimacy with the present moment, where every breath and heartbeat feels like a revelation. Ultimately, meditating in deep silence teaches us that quiet is not empty, it is full of presence. In this space, wisdom emerges not through analysis, but through direct experience. The mind becomes a still lake, capable of reflecting reality without distortion. Here, silence transforms from an absence of sound into the very language of the soul. Modern life is defined by noise, from the hum of traffic to the ping of notifications. Neuroscientific studies show that constant exposure to urban sound pollution elevates cortisol levels, increases stress responses, and reduces the brain's capacity for attention. Over time, this persistent auditory bombardment can impair memory, focus, and emotional regulation, leaving the mind exhausted even when the body is at rest. Beyond external noise, society faces a subtler, more insidious condition: the distraction epidemic. Smartphones, social media, and multitasking culture fragment attention, creating a persistent internal noise. Minds jump from task to task, rarely resting in a single moment, and mental fatigue accumulates. Silence, in contrast, offers a rare opportunity to step out of this cycle, allowing focus, clarity, and presence to naturally return. Research from cognitive neuroscience reveals that even brief moments of quiet, as little as 5 minutes, can restore attentional capacity and reduce stress markers. The brain benefits from these micro-retreats, recalibrating its networks and improving connectivity between the prefrontal cortex and areas involved in emotional regulation. In this sense, silence is both a refuge and a cognitive reset button. Creating islands of silence in daily life is essential. Simple practices, such as a silent morning walk, turning off notifications for a short period, or dedicating time to meditate without sound, can dramatically improve mental resilience. Over time, these intentional pockets of quiet allow the mind to recover from constant stimulation, fostering creativity, presence, and a deeper sense of well-being. Ultimately, silence in modern society is not a luxury, it is a necessity. In a world designed to fragment attention and amplify stress, consciously stepping into quiet restores balance. It is an act of resistance, a reclaiming of one's inner world, and a reminder that clarity, creativity, and emotional depth emerge not from constant input, but from the ability to listen to the mind and the world without interruption. Silence is not emptiness. It is a presence waiting to be discovered. Across centuries and cultures, from the stone corridors of monasteries to the secluded gardens of warriors, from ancient oracles to modern meditation rooms, silence has shaped thought, guided action, and nurtured the human spirit. In our noisy world, it is easy to forget that the most profound truths often emerge not from words, but from the quiet spaces between them. The mind, like a still lake, reflects reality most clearly when undisturbed by the constant ripple of distraction. So take a moment, step back, listen, let silence reveal what the world cannot speak. In the quiet, clarity arises, wisdom unfolds, and the deepest parts of ourselves come alive. Remember, the journey into silence is always within reach. Begin with a breath, a pause, a mindful moment, and return to it as often as you can. For in silence, we do not escape life. We truly meet it. Thank you for joining this exploration. May your days carry these quiet islands within, guiding your mind, heart, and spirit to a deeper harmony.